Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, this is Jesse with the Common Nerd, bringing you pop culture and all things ready through a common sense lens. And it's one of them situations where we know Disney is in quite a bad state, right? Their movies just aren't doing very well at the box office, whether you talk about Marvel or a lot of their Pixar originals or some of even their Disney stuff. Unless it's been a remake or a sequel of something, it hasn't done very, very well at the box office at all. You could argue very easily that every single one of their originals from Pixar for quite a long time has lost money. We can go all the way back to the Lightyear situation where that movie ended up being an absolute disastrous dumpster fire. It got roasted by the critics and the fans both. Hell, the LA Times even reported because the marketing was like, oh, it's going to be, they're going to have this gay kiss in it and yada, yada, yada. Like LA Times really wrote an article that said it was nothing more than gay bait, right? Like literally it was one of those movies where they marketed as being all this stuff and it was literally a blink and you moment miss it, but it didn't matter. The damage was already done. And we know internally that Disney flat out said that they blamed all of the gay marketing from that movie as to why it's failed. We heard that from all of the people that got fired from Pixar and were complaining about that. They were the ones working on Inside Out 2, where they complained that Disney was like, no more gay stuff, and the kids are there. They're like, no, that's not fair. And that they Disney specifically blamed Lightyear's flop on all of that kind of stuff. So we know that things have been going through massive amounts of changes and rehashes inside of Pixar. But we also know that Disney, in the process of hiring all these people based on diversity, inclusion, and equity quotas and not actual talent or merit, has ended up driving a lot of people out. We've heard the complaints from inside sources out there talking about how a lot of the creatives, a lot of the artists out there were being forced to pick up the slack for all these people that simply couldn't do the job because they were hired based on immutable characteristics. We know that Disney recently announced that one of their veteran artists who's been working on things going all the way back to The Little Mermaid is now coming back and having to teach and having to mentor the current people they have because they don't know how to do their jobs. Well, this probably should come as no shock to anybody out there then under these particular set of circumstances that Disney's next big launch out there, their next original IP coming from Pixar, looks like it's going to be a disastrous dumpster fire and lose the company hundreds of millions of dollars once again, continuing a massive trend that we have seen for a very long time coming out of Pixar, which all you have to do is go over to the numbers and check out all of their information to come down onto this. And this is coming from Box Office Theory. These are one of the people out there that's one of the main leaders in projections that a lot of the trade magazines use to adjust. And if their numbers are accurate, based on a $300 million reported budget, this movie is going to turn into an absolute disastrous dumpster fire, continuing a long-standing trend of Pixar's new IPs out there just simply falling flat with the audience. This is why you see Disney greenlighting so many things. Like, what are we at, Toy Story 7 now? I mean, we're going to get sequels to everything. We're going to get a Frozen 3 and probably a 4 and a 5 and a 6. And I mean, they just have no new ideas left that can resonate with fans or audiences in any way, shape, or form. And this is just another prime example of the disastrous dumpster fire that the diversity requirement hiring things that were put into place by Bob Iger and the rest of his ilk have caused nothing more than a talent drain inside the Walt Disney Company. And Elio is just the latest version of that. So we're going to check out all of the information we've got here on exactly what these numbers mean and how much this thing is going to lose at the box office. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing. We just crossed 2,000. I think we're at like 2026, and we're on our way to 2,100, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, leave us a comment in the section down below. Have you seen any of the marketing for Elio out there? Have you seen the trailers show up on any of your YouTube feeds or on maybe any of your other streaming services that you watch that have ads on them? I know I've seen some of the trailers for it. We've got another one that we're probably going to watch on our live stream that we do Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. here in a little bit as well. But it's one of them situations where there has not been a lot of marketing outside. I mean, this is coming from a guy who covers this stuff essentially 7 days a week. I saw the trailer for this. We went over the original trailers when they first released it, but a lot of people have been saying that they just haven't seen anything out there. So let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below. Do you think this thing's going to end up coming over projections or under projections? Do you think it's going to be another disastrous dumpster fire? Do you think Disney will ever learn its lesson from these kind of products? Let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below. And if you'd like to support the channel, please check out the links in the description as well. All right, so as you can see reported over here from the Hollywood Handle, Pixar's Elio is on track to earn 27 to 34 million on its domestic box office opening weekend. Reported budget is nearly $300 million, and that does not include marketing, ladies and gentlemen. At minimum, Disney generally spends $100 million on marketing, if not more. And at the end of the day, I don't know if they've actually spent that on Elio. I don't know, maybe if the company doesn't have a lot of faith in it, maybe that's why they're not spending that. But let's say they only spend half of that. You know, 350 million. Hell, just 320. Let's just base it on the reported budget alone. $300 million with a $27 million, let's just be generous and say $34 million opening weekend out there. That is a disastrous dumpster fire. If the weekend over weekend drop is at best 50%, this movie will never be able to reach enough money domestically to make a profit. It would have to have the most insane, absolutely insane international box office in order to make a profit. And as we see here from the numbers.com, the official box office reporting budget, that is just not something that has been happening. Inside Out 2, a sequel. Once again, we're talking about original IPs, but a sequel actually made $1.6 billion internationally. But then look at Elemental, right? An original series, just like Elio is, right? An original IP, an original idea. $448 million globally. Well, absolutely lost money. Lightyear, we've already talked about that one. Another situation, $218 million globally, which technically it's a spin-off, but even on that case, it was a completely new take on a character without the original voice there either. So essentially something new. $218 million globally. The international box office is not showing up for this stuff. Turning Red, right? $12 million globally. Now, given that one only released internationally at the box office and then ended up releasing on Disney Plus here in the States, but even things that they tried to release later out there, right? And I mean, look at these production budgets. 200 million, 175 million, 200 million, 200 million, 200 million. And look at this. Onward, 133 million total, total global, right? Same thing here. Soul, 120 million global, right? $200 million budget. These are all big, giant losses. The Incredibles 2, once again, a sequel. Toy Story 4, once again, a sequel, which Toy Story 4 sucked. It was not a very good movie at all, but the sequel people came in for. Coco, arguably not bad. $800 million globally. Cars 3, once again, a sequel. I didn't even remember Cars 3 came out. I didn't even see it. Did you? $383 million globally, $175 million budget. This is an absolute flop, and it's continuing a trend that's been going on since at least 2016, 2017, 2020 at minimum for all of this stuff. But you could argue 2017 Coco. Coco probably just barely made a profit, and that is the last one to do that, and that's going all the way back to 2017, boys and girls, and Elio's going to be the exact same way, as you can see over here from Box Office Theory. Closer to home on the release date. Disney and Pixar's Elio remains behind the pace of recent family-driven films, but that could be partly due to the chalked up to the immediate attention of the audience's focused on How to Train Your Dragon this Father's Day weekend. Maybe it could be, but at the end of the day, if the interest isn't there for the pre-sales, right, which pre-sales are a huge thing for these kind of movies out there, they give us a good idea of what's going to happen, unless they're just the random walk-up kind of stuff. Hey, we just happen to feel like going to the movies. Let's see what's at the movies, which is, for most people, is a very rare thing. Almost everybody uses their app and pre-purchases their tickets. Maybe they're qualifying that as walk-up if it's day of buying tickets of, but still, that would give you a good idea. This is simply not going there. They can blame it on How to Train Your Dragon, but How to Train Your Dragon's second weekend should be a pretty significant drop, and you should have plenty of room for Elio to come in there and snatch up a bunch of stuff at the box office. You're simply not seeing that trend at all. Early social reviews from critics are positive on Elio, unless you go talk to Film Threat's Alan Ng, and then, of course, he said it's just another disastrous dumpster fire, just like the last one we've seen. And we can trust Alan to be honest, but we guarantee we know all the rest of these people out there that are shilling for things are nothing more than access media possessed by the spirit of the age Disney shills, the pixie dusters, as we like to call them. But next week's full embargo lift, i.e. this week, as in coming this Wednesday, and late-stage pre-sales walk-up business will tell us more. At this point, our model relies heavily on those variables. Otherwise, next week's final forecast could be lower. Now, given they haven't released them this week yet, it's only Tuesday, but they're saying these numbers down here, which, as you can see, Elio right here, Disney, $27 million to $34 million on a reported $300 million budget. And Box Office Theory is saying these numbers could come in even lower this week on their predictions, depending on how things are looking. We could potentially be seeing an opening domestic box office weekend of $20 to $25 million. On a $300 million budget, that is impossible. They have to make, at minimum, break-even number at minimum, not even factoring in their actual budget of marketing, right? At minimum, $600 million to even argue that this movie might have made a profit. But let's be honest, we all know better. This movie is going to have to make $800 million globally to make a profit on a $300 million budget. There is no way that is going to happen with a weak domestic opening weekend like that. Like given, right, the Avatar movies always end up doing insane numbers overseas. Elio is not Avatar. You are not going to see those kind of numbers overseas. Avatar is an established property from an established director that everybody knows for the most part and loves, right? But Elio, on the other hand, is something brand new from a company who we have not been able to trust any of their IPs or their new ideas for a very long time, going all the way back to 2017, almost like 8 years ago at this point. 8 years ago it's been since the last time they had an original idea actually make a profit. And we know that that's the era of when they really started to hyperdrive hiring on these diversity, inclusion, and equity nonsense. We know post 2016 is when that stuff kicked into overdrive. And considering how long we know it takes for a movie to get into production and actually get completed, Coco was probably started in like 2012 with the brainchild of people that actually still had talent and actually still were good, putting out good quality IPs and good quality stories from the Walt Disney Corporation. We have not seen that like in a very, very long time. Ladies and gentlemen, the audience doesn't trust Disney anymore when it comes to new IPs. They especially don't trust them if they hint and even they sniff out even a slightest bit of any kind of the agenda trying to target their children and try to warp their children's brain, like what we saw with Lightyear, which turned into an absolute disastrous dumpster fire, and Disney insiders themselves admit that that's the reason why they blame it on it. So does Elio have any of that in there? No, not that we've seen from any of the trailers. There haven't been any hints of that. There hasn't been any marketing tours or any producers or anybody else saying like that. You just got a kid that's got an eye patch going out there running around trying to, mess with aliens and get transported to another planet out there, and he'll be the sole representative for Earth. And it's one of them situations where on the premise, this should be a fun movie. But honestly, like, the art really isn't all that great. I'm not a big fan of the art style. It's something that we've seen kind of like since the Jimmy Neutron days. I wasn't a big fan of it back then. I'm not really a big fan of it in Pixar's version either. And simply, like, guy at the movies here points out, Disney doesn't market the movie. Also Disney. What the hell? There hasn't been a major marketing push for it. And if there hasn't been a major marketing push for it, that means Disney doesn't have a lot of faith in this movie to begin with. We heard about this kind of stuff with Captain America, Brave New World, right? Disney insiders leaked out that the test screenings internally have been absolutely abysmal. And then they basically reshot the entire movie last summer. And even then, at best, the insiders said it was mid. It was serviceable. That movie lost money, and the marketing for that was all over the place, right? Elio has none of that. So if Disney doesn't have any faith in this movie to even put any serious marketing behind it, and they've already spent $300 million on the budget, then why would fans have any desire to show up and give this a shot? Some brand new IP, something that's untested, untrusted, from a company that we honestly don't trust very much anymore to begin with. Elio is just another prime example of all of the disastrous dumpster fire and decisions that Bob Iger has made over the last few years. Since 2016, it's been full-blown diversity, inclusion, and equity budget nonsense going forward. We know from leaks and from people from actual on-tape Disney employees saying that, yes, there were diversity, inclusion, and equity hiring requirements, that if you did not have enough of your department that represented all of these, whatever nonsense, immutable characteristic BS that the cult wanted to come up with, that the spirit of the age wanted to make up, right, to identify people as, to divide people as, right? If you did not meet those people, it didn't matter if they were qualified for the job, didn't matter if they had any merit or talent. All that mattered was whether or not they met one of the check boxes. And if they did, you had to hire them. And then all of the people that were already there that were talented either got pushed out or had to make up for the slack for everybody else. And they simply got burnt out. And the people in charge of the actual creative ideas, they have no talent at all. We've seen the kind of pedigree of the backstory of the people that have been over at Marvel and over at Star Wars. I mean, what, like we have, like, Shudboing, Chamoy, no, like she's been a documentarian. What kind of people do you think they've been hiring inside of Pixar, right? We've seen the quality of product that Disney Pixar in the modern era puts out for their originals. It's absolute garbage. It's absolute crap. And even Inside Out 2 was just okay, but it still made $1 billion because the audiences and the customer are so desperate for good quality family entertainment that's not going to have a bunch of the alphabet soup nonsense trying to shove it down their kid's throat, that normally that stuff's a success when it comes from a proven track record. But there's also with Elio being a disastrous dumpster fire that will lose money for Disney at the box office. It shows you that unless it's a proven brand, Disney's not going to trust it. And that means Disney is going to take less chances on new ideas and continue to regurgitate the exact same stuff until the audiences finally get tired of it and stop showing up. At that point, I don't know what Disney's going to do. Will they have the ideas and the wisdom and the guidance to actually hire back or maybe bring in some people of actual legitimate talent? Or are they going to continue to go down this path where it's nothing more than remakes and redos? I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to watch going forward. But at the end of the day, the audiences and fans have made a very loud message being sent to the Walt Disney Company and Pixar as a whole. We don't trust you. We don't believe in your products. We don't believe you have any talent left. And we're not going to show up to your stuff. Elio is going to end up flopping at the box office and costing the Walt Disney Company and Pixar hundreds of millions of dollars. And at the end of the day, it's their fault. They have danced with the devil, and now they are getting burned because at the end of the day, audiences decide, and the fans have decided that Elio is going to be a flop.